Now, normally y'all are used to seeing me sit down, but I wanted to show off my outfit because isn't it just so cute? Yes, it's day 2 with it. It's so cute. Loving it. But I just wanted to show y'all. And also because as a woman, we love a good skirt with pockets. We love the pockets. Yes. We do. We love the pockets. But I love it. I'm feeling very cute today.
Give it right back, baby, give it right back. This up, baby, can I sit right back? Wanna give it right back, baby, yeah, like that.
Now, I can't remember which one of my viewers from which one of my platforms had asked me about what my lip color was, but it's this one right here, baby. All right, you need to go ahead and get that. This is an absolute must if we're talking lip gloss, okay? And if you could, tag them down in the comments because your girl can always use a paid sponsorship. Yeah. And side note, I just want to say thank you so much to you guys because I'm almost at 10K. Like, I know I said that last video that I posted, but the way that I'm checking my analytics every day and the numbers are just growing and growing, the interaction is growing. Like, I truly do appreciate the bond and community that we built over here. So I appreciate you guys so much. But because out of all of my platforms, I get the most love here, I do have something that I want to share with you guys. And that is I am going to be, with a heavy heart, I am going to be getting rid of my Etsy. And it's because it's just time for me to grow. It's time for me to expand. I've been on Etsy for the last 7 years and Etsy has truly served its purpose. It's great for businesses who are just getting started. And I'm past the getting started stage. I'm at the point where it's time for me to go ahead and grow and expand and do my own thing. So I will be making my own website. So if you are wanting to inquire about getting any readings or anything like that, Etsy still will be up for a little while. I will make an official day that I will be taking it down in another video and a official post across all of my social platforms, so you will know when Etsy will be leaving. But as of right now, you are more than welcome to still book any services and get all and any products from my Etsy shop, as well as coming here into the shop in person. But with both of those announcements, they are important because they are tied to the next statement that I'm going to make. As soon as I hit 10K, like I promised in my last video, I will be doing a very huge sale for you guys. And as soon as I do announce that I will be transitioning from Etsy to my own website, I will be doing another sale and discount as well. So make sure that you guys continue to show some love here on the channel, because the more love that you guys show, the more I can show by giving back to you guys in some way, shape, or form. Just as a token of my gratitude. What's good in the YouTube hood? It's your girl Luna Nova, and I'm back with another one for y'all today. Welcome back to the haunted corner of TikTok. And yes, you guessed it, we are back with a part 3 for you guys for Audacity's ghost story stitches. And let me just say, Spirit has been busy because according to these stories, I haven't heard a spirit sleep, not one bit of rest. They are running rampant. From things that whisper in the dark to things that go bump in the algorithm. These tales will have you side-eyeing your own shadow. Y'all asked for it and I will deliver it. Let's go ahead and get into some more spooky stories with Audacity's famous viral stitch. Now, another reason why I'm super excited for today's compilation is because one of my mutuals from TikTok, one of my super good friends, AJ, and if y'all know who AJ is, make sure that you tag her in the comments and show some love to her and her channel, as well as the rest of her content, because if you're someone who supports me and the things that I speak about and speaking out against injustice and just intellectual minds, okay, food for thought, this is someone you definitely want to go ahead and follow. So make sure that you let her know that Luna sent you. So grab your drink, grab you a snack, and let's go ahead and get into these spooky stories from the creepy side of TikTok.
Story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true.
So when my ex-husband was in the military, we lived in Germany, right, for 4 years. We were in an apartment building that was like freshly renovated, and we were 3rd floor, and above us was storage, okay? So I was like, okay, cool, like nobody above us. One night I'm sitting there after he had deployed, and my daughter was 1 year old. She was in her crib, and I was on the couch. I was just alone, whatever. And all of a sudden I heard this noise above my head. It sounded like them little popcorn machines that little kids push around with the balls bounce around, right? So I was like, okay, I'm obviously hallucinating. So I turned off the TV, but the sound followed me. But it wouldn't go in my daughter's room. Followed me to my room, but not my daughter's room. So I was like, that's cool. Heard that quite often. Okay, another friend was over one night and heard that too. And then that bitch bailed on me and never came back. So, okay. Anyway, another time I was sleeping and something thumped me in the forehead. I had a mark. Like, it was like a little red mark. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And so I get up and I check on my daughter, and she has 104 fever that took 4 hours to bring down to the hospital. Okay, like what? Another time, I went down to a friend's apartment to go watch a movie. Came back upstairs, and like the way the apartment was set up, you walk in the front door. There's living room, dining room, kitchen, long hallway, bathroom, bedroom, laundry room at the end, right? So I had a light on in the laundry room, and I opened the front door with a straight sight to there, and I watched a shadow of a grown man walk from my daughter's room into my room. Slept on the couch for a few days after that. Okay, that was fun. Another time I was sleeping and I felt something put my hair behind my ear and like whisper, Charlotte, my name is not Charlotte. Okay, and I was like, that's fucking weird. I sat straight up. It was the middle of summer and my breath was frosting. We did not have AC in those apartments. Another time, okay, I hear these boots. They hit the floor, they walk to the bathroom, they walk to the kitchen, they walk out the front door and down the stairs from up above me down. Okay, and I was like, that's weird. So about a week goes by and I'm hearing these every day. I finally get up one morning with them and I go to the little phone thing we had, right? And I turn the hall light on and I watch out the peephole and I hear them footsteps coming down the stairs and walking right past me and nobody was fucking there, okay? My neighbor was looking at the exact same time because she'd been hearing it too, so that was cool. But the thing that really got me was like the time that we were moving and we had cleared out our house. We were at the hotel up the street and our little 3-year-old daughter looks at us in the face and she goes, I'm really gonna miss Emily. And we're like, who's Emily? And she goes, oh, the little girl that crawled out from under my bed to play with me. So yeah, that was fun. And the next house was haunted too, so yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I'm a little late to the game, but I've been really trying to work up the nerve to tell one of my many ghost stories. But I've been nervous about it because I do feel like these stories have power around them. And if I talk about it too much, weird stuff starts to happen. Buttercup is already here. She always knows when I'm going to start talking about some weird shit. Let me just start off by saying I've always been very sensitive to like energy around me. I can always sense when there's spirits in a room or something like that. And like, if you don't believe me, that's fine. Most people are a little like wary about it, whatever. But it was very prominent when I was like preteen, like 11, 12, 13 years old. And I lived in this house and the backyard was mostly woods. And I had my own room. And how the room was set up, like the door's here, and then along the wall there's 2 closets, like open door closets. You can see right through them. So bedroom door, first closet, second closet, and across from the second closet was my bed. So my bed, you could look directly into that closet, you could see into this closet, and then you could see the front door. I had a very uneasy feeling living there, like from the start. I was only there for a few years, but there was some weird stuff that happened. I won't go into too much detail, but the stuff that had been happening, it scared me so bad I started sleeping with the lights on. And I slept with the lights on for like a whole month. And I remember keeping a journal that I lost in the move, unfortunately. I kept a journal of when I was like waking up in the middle of the night. I was waking up at 3:04 a.m. every night for a month. Exactly 3:04. I'd wake up, I'd look at my clock on my nightstand, 3:04, I'd write it down. I'd write about whatever I was dreaming about, whatever I saw. I always felt uneasy when I woke up. Try to go back to sleep. I usually could. Exactly a month. The last night of the month that I've been waking up at 3:04. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I'm laying there. I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? And I felt cold. Like I had my blankets up. I felt so cold. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like looking around my room and oh my God. And my bed is facing this closet. And then there's the other closet. And I see a little girl, I say a little girl, like she was probably about my age, maybe a little younger. At the time I was like 13, so she was probably 11 or 12, crouched in the corner of my closet. I froze. She was like hiding. It looked like she was hiding, like in my, I was like, girl. And I pulled the covers up over my head and a minute goes by and I pull them back down and she's standing in my closet. She's standing there and I'm shaking, but she wasn't scary. She didn't look scary. She looked scared. She looked terrified. And I was like, oh my God, I pulled the covers back over my head. I pulled them back down. And now she's like she's out of the closet. She's out of the closet. She's like standing by my bed. And I'm like, oh my God. And I finally figured out, okay, don't put the covers over your head. She's gonna just stand there, and then like she'll go away when the sun goes out. I'm standing there, I'm looking at her. She's standing there, I'm looking at her. And she goes, like, she's, I went, I said, what? And I went to go say something, and she panicked, and she went, shh, shh. And I like just looked at her, and she said, he's coming. And then ran back into my closet. She crouches back down. It's like 3:30 at this point. 10 minutes later, like 3:40, 3:45, a figure of a fucking man shows up in my bedroom doorway. Like I can see that. And I'm just frozen. I don't move. I don't pull the covers up over my head. I just watch him. And I didn't go back to sleep. My alarm went off for school at like 6:15. I just let it go. And like the sun came up and he disappeared. And then I got ready for school. And that's it.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
This story still creeps me out because I still can't figure out what exactly happened. So this was about 10 to 12 years ago, and my mom and I had driven out to visit the family for a holiday, and we ended up going the night before because y'all know the day of traffic is not cool. So we're having a good time, sitting, chilling, or whatever. We ended up sharing a room with my cousin. So my mom and my cousin slept in the bed together, and I slept on the floor. Now, prior to anybody going to sleep, we were up talking and joking and playing, but I'm a night owl, so I'm usually up late anyway. They fell asleep a few hours before me. So I ended up getting settled. All the lights are out in the house because everybody's asleep. And I'm listening to music, have my headphones on or whatever, and my eyes were closed. So how somebody comes in a room and they turn on the light and you can see the light, even though your eyes are closed, you can feel the light. So I feel that. So I'm like squinting like this and I'm looking to see who's coming in or who turned the light on. There's no light on in the room. But when I open my eyes, like I can see the outline of my cousin in the doorway, and she had a blanket over her shoulders. And there was like light pouring in from behind her, but it wasn't like bright light. It's weird. It's hard to explain. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, cuz, what are you doing? And she didn't answer me and she didn't move. I was like, cuz, can you either come in or go out? I said, because that light is bothering me. And she still didn't answer me or didn't move. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Maybe, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal. So I put the blanket over my head just to block it out. So within a few minutes, I sat back up because I was trying to grab my water bottle. When I sat up, my cousin was in the bed, knocked the fuck out. And one thing that I hadn't like rationalized or even recognized when I saw her standing in the doorway was that in order for her to have left the room, she would have had to walk past me. Now, I had been up the whole time and I know she didn't walk past me. I would have felt her kick me or something. There was no way she would have gotten around me without touching me. So I was like, okay, well, there's one more person in the house. Maybe that was her. I rationalized it like that. I went to sleep. So the next morning I get up, we're all getting up. It's the actual holiday. We're trying to get ready. Everybody's getting in the shower, whatever. So the other two showers were taken. So I asked my relative who owns the house, I said, hey, can I use your shower because the other two are taken? She's like, oh yeah, that's fine. She said, but if somebody else needs it, because other family was arriving, she was like, just get dressed in the walk-in closet so they can use the shower. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I went in there, showered, and then I go into the walk-in closet to get dressed. Like she said, I was half dressed already, but to finish. And y'all, as soon as I closed the door, every hair on my body stood up. I was terrified instantly. It came over me out of nowhere. And I am not a fearful person. I'm not scared of shit. And honestly, when I feel fear, I'm the type of person that gets mad because it's like, who the fuck are you to make me fearful? And my fight or flight, though, it was kicking my ass. I can't even lie because I'm like, I don't want to run, but there's nothing to fight. What do I do? But I'm like, nah, I ain't no sucker. So I start praying and I was turning around to face whatever this was making me feel scared because I could feel it behind me. Whatever it was watching me. As I'm turning, whatever this thing is pushes me into the fucking door. When I tell y'all that I hightailed it the fuck out of that closet, I threw that door open and ran back to the room that we slept in because my mom was in there. So I get in there and I'm telling her what happened and I'm like freaked out. My mom's just so calm like she always is. And she's just sitting there like listening to me. She's, nodding, whatever. And then when I finish my little rant, she says, well, they did an exorcism in this house. No, the fuck I didn't, mother. No, I didn't. And if that was something you knew, why are we over here and why didn't you tell me before we came? Like, I feel like that's something you share. So as she's telling me this, the relative who owns the house comes in the room to tell us something. She was joking, being silly. And as she's leaving, she says, oh, Ari, she said, don't be standing over me in my sleep like that. She said, I ain't like that. That was creepy. I was like, huh? What are you talking about? She was like, last night. She said, and what you doing up at 3 in the morning anyway, walking around the house? She said, you know, you were supposed to be asleep. Like, she's joking, but she's serious about me coming in her room. And I was like, I never came in your room. She was like, I saw you. She said, you opened the door, you were standing there, and all that light was coming in behind you. And I'm like, that was not me. And so she's like perplexed a little bit, and she looks puzzled. She's like, you know, whatever. And she said something dismissive and walked out. I think she didn't really want to go deep on it. And at that moment, I made a connection that I didn't catch before. So at the same time, something was in the doorway imitating my cousin, like taking on her form in front of me. And at the same time, something was taking on my form in front of her in the other room. And then I had to think about this. It was pitch black. We were all in the bed. Where the fuck did the light come from?
So I have tried to stitch this creator's video a couple times now, and the audio just wouldn't work. No matter how long the video I made was, it would not work. So we're gonna try this again. So me, my brother, my stepbrother, my mom, and my stepdad move into this house, or we get this house. Up on the mountain, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's lovely. Right before we moved in, I went to go look at the house. My stepdad took me. It was just us two, and I'm just looking at my bedroom because I'm just, you know, in awe that I'm gonna have my own room after sharing a room with 2 boys. So I'm picturing where everything's gonna go. I'm looking out the window, and my stepdad hollers for me. He says, "Hey, Shelby." So I go look for him, can't find him anywhere, and I find him outside by the pool deck. And he's just sitting there looking at something, and I'm like, "Did you need something?" He's like, "No." I was like, "You hollered for me?" He's like, "I didn't." I was just like, "Cool." So whatever, I kind of let that brush off my shoulders, didn't really care. Fast forward to January, it's my birthday. My mom had sent my 2 brothers off somewhere so I can have a girls' day for my birthday. I was having some friends come over, so I'm in my bedroom and I'm taking selfies in the window. We just pull the photos up real quick. So if you need to pause, zoom in, whatever. Look up here in the corner. To me, that looks like someone standing there. Like a torso, an arm. That looks like someone standing there. I have another kind of angle of it. This one's a little brighter because I have the tablet turned. I don't know. Pause and zoom in. Tell me what you think. I still think it looks like a boy or a shirtless person. So I would go on to show family members, friends, and everyone. Most of them would be like, that's the wood paneling. I saw a person. And then, you know, a little later on, another day, my mom, just a little backstory, she's a clean freak. She cleans all the time. And one thing she cannot stand is hand marks or smudges on the window. So we're all in our own room, and she hollers for all of us to come there. And she's like, "Who did this?" And she's pointing up at the window in the bonus room. And we're looking, and we're like, "Mom, we just got tablets for Christmas. We didn't do that." So I sit down, and as she's cleaning up, I snap 2 photos of the window. And I don't know why I did, but I still have them. So this is the window that she's talking about. You know, there you go. I have a closer little view of these little smudge marks. So I don't know if you can tell, but these look like hand marks. They look like they were smacking the window. There's a thumb, pointer, middle, ring, and pinky. And also, I mean, I'm in middle school. I'm about 8th grade. My hands are big. My hands have always kind of been big. And my 2 brothers are not too far behind me in middle school. So our hands are kind of larger in size. These are small hands. And now that I have a 2-year-old, I've kind of scaled out the size of these. This is like a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old handprints, because my son is not too far behind on the hand size. At the time, my mom was convinced that it was me or one of my brothers, but now, to this day, she can look at the photo and be like, okay, those are obviously not y'all's handprints. But a few other things happened in that house. I mean, I hated the house. There was one night we were all sleeping in the living room because the heat went out, and she had a sheet put up blocking the extra living room and the hallway where all the bedrooms were at to keep the heat contained. And, you know, we had the space heater and stuff. And I had woken up to go use the restroom, and I look at the sheet, and there's feet poking out under the sheet. And yeah, needless to say, I did not get up to use the restroom. And after that night, I bitched and complained about that house any chance I could. I didn't like it, especially coming home from school. I was the only person home for a while. I would not leave the dining room table. I would not. Even the woods around the house had odd feelings. So when we moved out finally, I was so excited. I was like, finally. We were cleaning up my room, and mind you, my mom had cleaned this house before we moved in. Every room, every closet, every nook and cranny, cleaned. We're in my room, and she's pulling stuff out of the closet, and I'm putting it in boxes. And in the very back of my closet, there's a shelf, and she pulls out a yearbook. And we're looking through it. It's an elementary school yearbook. I want to say year 2000 elementary school yearbook. I'm not for certain, but we're looking through it, and we flip to where everyone signs. You know, at the end of the year, you sign everyone's yearbook. And it was stuff like in loving memory of, R.I.P., rest in peace, like all these like terms towards a little boy who had obviously passed away sometime in elementary school. And that freaked me and my mother out. And we've kind of put the pieces together that like more than likely a little boy had passed away, maybe that lived here or knew who lived here. Needless to say, that shook us. Like, we kind of had confirmed everything that happened. So that's it with that house. The house that I had grew up in, that my grandparents had built, where my, aunts and uncles and my mom grew up in, it had its own little story. It used to be a horse track. It was in the woods on a couple acres. It was a gorgeous house. But me being a teenager, a stupid teenager, I tried to ghost hunt with my friends. We would make Ouija boards. We would make little, I don't know if you remember the pencil on the paper, like the yes or no, or like any chance we could, we were trying to talk to ghosts. That's what our MO was. And more specifically, my friend McKenna, we would sit up at the top of the driveway at night, and we'd ask for someone to show themselves, and we'd hear 3 little knocks, or it's just weird stuff. There's this one photo I have that creeps me out to this day, and my brother and McKenna can attest that no one was in the room. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the photo up. So that's me, that's McKenna, that's Logan. We were literally about to walk out the door to go to my little brother's football game. His arms are down by his side, mine are obviously down by my side, and McKenna here in the middle, her arm's over my shoulder, and her other arm is on Logan's shoulder. Whose hand is she fucking holding? There was no one else in the room with us. Logan could not contort, because that would be his left hand, which would be this shoulder right here. So he had to bend that back behind his back. And obviously my left hand is over here, and there's just no way I'm getting my hand over there. This one creeps us out. This was Gordon Street. This is the house I grew up in. So if you want more stories of this house, let me know. I got plenty, and I also have more photos, but this one is the freakiest.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, so I lived in Salem, Massachusetts for a little bit under a year. And I'm a spooky girl, okay? My mom is a spooky girl. My mom gave me my first deck of tarot cards when I was in the 7th grade, and she also gave me her original Parker Brothers Ouija board. I'll get there. If you can handle long-form content, I'll get there. So, I can pick up on the vibes of places, very easily. When I was touring apartments in Salem, I know the whole thing with the town is, completely commercializing, an absolute atrocity that happened. But, that shit's no fucking joke. So, one of the apartments we toured was actually in Gallows Hill, which is right off 95, next to the cemetery. And I walked in, and the vibes were sinister. And I asked the realtor, I was like, do you think this apartment's haunted? Knowing full fucking well it was. And he was like, would you want it if it was? And I was like, no. Maybe. But I did not end up going with that apartment. I went with a different one, and I got, I knew that there were presences, plural, because this building was built in 1875 and is super old. So before we even move a single thing, not a suitcase, not a piece of furniture, we unlock the door and open it, and there's like a glass orb on the ground, and we were both like, what is that? My partner goes to pick it up, and I'm like, can I see it? And they were like, no, it's mine, which is very out of character for them. And they were like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what that was, here you go. And I look at the orb, and there's a tiny L scratched into the orb, and I was like, oh, you're so right, L for Liam, this is yours. And let me say, I am ignorant enough to bring a Ouija board into a haunted apartment, but I am not ignorant enough to say that that fucking orb leaves the apartment, because that shit stays right here. And so from that point on, I was like, okay, they like Liam, it's still sort of a toss-up on me. And when I brought the Ouija board in, I didn't notice it at first, but it just felt so crowded in the room that it was in, and it just felt more and more crowded the closer you would get to the Ouija board. Like, I didn't use it, but they knew it was there. And then I go to rehab, as one does, and I come back, and I'm like, get this fucking shit out of my apartment. Somewhere in between that span of time, and after I got it out, I think it was just too late for me. I got into 2 car accidents within the span of less than 60 days, and I was not at fault for either of them. So I gave them to a friend, put it in safe hands, and she got into 2 car accidents. But after the Ouija board was gone, like, it was sort of quieting down, but it was like the typical haunted house, like, stuff. Like, we'd be sitting in our bedroom and we'd hear, like, chairs scooching around in the kitchen, or, like, stuff moving around, like, coming back into a room being like, I didn't put that there. And there were also, like, weird bumps and noises coming from the walls and from the ceiling. But whenever you take out your phone to try and record it, of course it stopped. And I know for a fact that this was happening to the tenant below me, because they contacted my landlady and they were like, hey, there are weird noises coming from upstairs and from, like, in the walls. My landlady texted me and she's like, do you have, like, any appliances running or something? And I was like, no, I have a noise machine. So a maintenance guy comes in and finds nothing, of course. And then, like, closer to me moving out of the apartment, I had a really horrible nightmare. I have night terrors, okay? I have them less now that I'm not living in that apartment / working retail, but I've had some fucking horrifying nightmares. But in this dream, the tenant who lives above me was like, oh, it's a good thing you weren't home last night, because Eleanor was really trying to get in. And I was like, who the fuck is that? And then I just have this vision of this woman who's either, I don't know if it's a night dress or a hospital gown, like, banging on the door, being like, let me in, let me in. That shit. I woke up, cold fucking sweat, and I knew, I was like, this has something to do with the property, and I don't know what, and I was too much of a weenie to ask my upstairs neighbor about it, but I did some independent snooping. And so apparently that house was built by Nicholas Noyes, Noyes, who, upon further inspection, was the colonial minister that oversaw the Salem witch trials. He owns property in Salem and also Danvers, because Danvers was old Salem. And so I was like, can't be good. Who the fuck is Eleanor, though? Look down the family tree. She died in 2010. Yeah. On a separate note, I would like to thank the witch who gave me some crystal advice, and now I can't go anywhere without this. There's really so much to this. I forgot to add that whenever I would shower, my showers, even if they started hot, they would always end cold, or they wouldn't get hot at all. And my partner was like, I don't have that problem, and they've showered right after me, and it hasn't been a problem. And if I showered with them in the room, it wasn't a problem. It's just so bizarre. Just don't fuck around with Ouija boards. Just don't. And Caitlin, if you're seeing this, I will text you my address. so you can mail that to me, because I'll be damned if I'm taking that shit on a plane. I feel like I have to be buried with it or something. Like I can't get rid of it. So just keep that shit wrapped in white cloth, I guess.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I did a lot of my growing up in Orange County, and up until I was about maybe 5 or 6 years old or so, I was living in an apartment complex in Santa Ana on Highland Street. And in that apartment, I lived with my cousin who was around my age, my aunt, my parents, and my older sister. A lot of my time there was spent hanging out with my sister and my cousin because a lot of the kids were older than me, and plus we didn't stay there for too long, so whatever. So yeah, anyway, years after we had moved on from that place, I was taking a trip down memory lane with my mom, and the topic of that apartment came up, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so yeah, the topic of that apartment came up, and I asked my mom, like, hey, whatever happened to that cousin that we used to live with? Because, ever since we moved out of that apartment, never heard from him again. And, my mom looks at me kind of perplexed, and she sits me down and she goes, okay, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anyone else in the family before because I didn't want to scare them. And, I was kind of confused at what she was trying to get at. But basically, she goes on to say that that kid was in that apartment when we moved in, and that kid was a ghost. And what this kid would do is he would run up and down the hallways and look into everyone's rooms. And that's how my mom first noticed this kid. And he would never go into her room. And her guess is probably because she was an adult. But because I was around his age, he would always be in my room, playing with my toys, hanging out with me, talking to me, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. It's been years, and I still think about that kid all the time. But the funny thing is, I couldn't tell you a single detail about what that kid looked like. Eye, hair, skin color, I don't know. Clothes that he wore, what his voice sounded like, couldn't tell you. And my mom can't tell you either. She doesn't remember. All she remembers is that there was a kid in that house that ran up and down the hallway. And all I knew is that there was a cousin around my age, and we hung out all the time. But yeah, I don't know. Funny story. I got more if you want them.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, so a couple years ago, I was in Estes Park, Colorado. I'm a wildlife photographer, so I was actually there looking for elk to photograph. And I've always just been fascinated with all this paranormal stuff. I love watching ghost shows. I love watching Sam and Colby on YouTube. It's all so fascinating to me, even though I've never had a paranormal experience up till this moment. It just was very fascinating to me. So because of that, I wanted to stay in the Stanley Hotel, which is in Estes Park and is notoriously one of the most haunted hotels in the world. Sam and Colby have done multiple videos there and have captured some pretty crazy stuff. Anyways, I even decided to buy one of those little spirit boxes to see if I could communicate with anything while I was there. So I roll up to the Stanley, I get my room, and then I go back into my truck, got some dinner, and I drove back and was sitting in the parking lot of the Stanley, and I was FaceTiming my sister at this moment. And I was like, hey, should I open this spirit box up and try it out in the parking lot here? And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? So I opened this spirit box, start asking questions for probably 10 minutes, not a single thing, no response whatsoever. So I was like, okay, this is kind of dumb. But I was like, why don't I take it up to the room, see if I get anything there? So I go into my hotel room, which is very eerie, by the way. They've got all these pictures of like really old-timey photos of creepy old people standing there. You know how it is. And I'm still FaceTiming my sister, and I asked all kinds of questions while I was in the hotel room for probably another 10 minutes. Again, no response. So I say to my sister, I go, well, it clearly doesn't like me, so why don't you ask it a question? And I kid you not, clear as day, the spirit box goes, no, you ask it something, like in like a sassy voice. I'm dead serious. It hadn't said anything this entire time until I say to my sister, you ask it a question, and it was almost like I was talking to some dude on the phone. It sounded that clear. It says, no, you ask it something. And I freaked out. I turned the spirit box off. My sister started freaking out over the phone. And to this day, I just can't explain it. I can't really debunk it. I'm a very rational person. So I've tried, and I've even taken apart the spirit box, and it's just a normally wired like radio device. So, anyways, it was quite the creepy night that night staying there alone. I slept with the lights on, but yeah, that's my story. So pretty weird stuff.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I have such a good one with proof that I've sat on for so long. I am dusting off this trend and bringing it to you. So this was summer of 2021, 4 years ago. My friend Ashley was having her grad party. So her house is like set back in the woods by a very long driveway with woods on either side of it. And not everybody could park in front of the house, so most of us were in the cul-de-sac. And it was a long enough driveway that they were sending a golf cart to pick everyone up and bring them to the house. So nothing happened at the party, but on our way out, me and my friend Brady, who I was driving home, didn't want to pull anyone away, so instead of taking the golf cart, we just walked back to the car. People are coming and going on the driveway the whole night, so we passed the guy, past the gate, and now we're on that stretch. Up ahead, like 20, 25 feet, there's a girl walking to our left, and behind the girl is one of like 2 lampposts on the path, so it's not bright at all, but you can see. But because that girl is standing in front of the lamppost, there's a shadow cast and we cannot see who she is. What she was wearing, though, she had on a white dress, white shoes, white socks, and she looked like short, like a kid. Mind you, it's late at night, not really a family party, didn't see any kids at the party. She continues walking, and we're quieting down, like taking note of her, mutually creeped out, but not mentioning it yet, because this is all happening in a moment. She's stepped off the driveway now onto the grass next to the tree line, and we stop because we both called out a hello to no response. And as she continues walking, and in that moment of silence, Brady breaks it and goes, "Who is that?" This girl folds down, crouches like in half, like back flattened, veers to the right, and runs into the woods in that pose. So naturally, we book it back, get the golf cart ride to the car, and like we were just dumbfounded. And I think we tried to tell whoever was there driving us back like what happened, and it was creepy, but it was also quick. And for months after that, we would just text one another like, we saw a fucking ghost. That was a ghost. What? Here's the creepiest part, though. Going back in time, thinking about the first time that Brady and I ever went to Ashley's house, we took a wrong turn down a similar driveway that was at the end of a street, long woods on either side, and we pulled into a clearing at the end of it with all these like old wood buildings that were like empty and like a flagpole and a teepee. So obviously the wrong place. And when we got to Ashley's house, she was like, "Oh my God, that's so creepy. You guys pulled into the old Girl Scout campground." So connecting those dots, as if that wasn't creepy enough, I go and look up that campground, and guess what the fuck I find? Camp Indian Run, Philadelphia Girl Scouts, in the same exact outfit. Mind you, the direction that girl ran was in the direction of the path that leads to that campground. So not only am I so grateful that I had my friend there to witness this so that we both felt affirmed, but it also just like changed my mind on what ghosts could be, because I believed way before that. Obviously now I definitely do, but I'd never seen a full apparition like that. And also I'd never considered the possibility that this situation brought up, which was that maybe ghosts are just timelines clashing, or like reflections of time passing through one another, where we might have seen this girl who was on a totally other, plane in the 50s, like that picture showed you. But what if she saw us? What if we were the ghosts to her, hence her running away? Like,
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
All right, here we are. Didn't think I'd ever jump on one of these TikTok trends, but I have a story that spans across generations in my family. So I'll share that with you. I'll start with what happened to me. So I was 5 years old, and my father was pastoring a very small country church in North Carolina, in Spring Hope, North Carolina. So I'm in kindergarten, and I wasn't the type of kid that had tons of nightmares. I had some, but I'm just prefacing the story with that just so you kind of understand what was happening. And I remember going to sleep one night, and I don't know, I mean, I was 5 years old, so I don't remember the time of night that I woke up, but I was woken up, and I used to sleep on my back. To this day, after this, I've never slept on my back. I can't do it. I was sleeping on my back, and something in the room kind of like startled me. We always slept with fans. I still sleep with a fan, but something just woke me up. And I remember opening my eyes, and I saw this shadowy figure standing right beside my bed, like looking down on me. And even as a young kid, I was thinking that I was dreaming. Like, this is a dream. This isn't really happening. And as I'm looking up at the figure, over his shoulder, there's a sword sticking out. Like, I can clearly see a sword. And it's just standing there, and you don't know how you're going to respond when weird things like that happen. And I'm just laying there as a 5-year-old kid looking up at this figure, and he reaches over his shoulder to grab it, just like this. He starts pulling it out. I go to scream because I'm a kid, and I try to scream, and he jumps on me and starts choking me. I couldn't scream. I was trying to scream for my parents, and I couldn't. And, you know, growing up in a religious family, I went to Sunday school and all that kind of stuff. As a 5-year-old kid, the only thing I remembered was that one of my Sunday school teachers told me that if I'm ever in trouble, that if I can just say Jesus, say the name of Jesus, that it'll help. So I just tried to say Jesus. I was able to get out Jesus, and it jumps off of me and disappears. I jump up out of the bed, run to my parents' bedroom, and I'm freaking out. And as a 5-year-old kid, I'm not really explaining to them what's happening. They just thought I had a bad dream. So I ended up sleeping with my parents for I don't know how long. Eventually, I moved back into my room. Never happened again, okay? And to be perfectly honest, I kind of wrote that out of my mind like it was just a dream. Like, you know, you have something traumatic kind of happen to you. I just rationalized it in my mind that it was a dream. Fast forward about 17-ish years, I'm a senior in college. Come home from college one weekend, hanging out with my family, mom, dad, and sister. We're sitting around the house watching some TV. Well, there's a bad thunderstorm. Power goes out for several hours. And we're sitting in the living room, and my dad, he was one of those guys that like to tell scary stories and stuff like that. So he's like, let's tell like ghost stories, scary stuff. And so we're all making up just fake stuff. And we're sitting there in candlelight, you know, it's kind of creepy. And my dad, he goes, how about this one? He said, I'll tell you a real one. Something crazy that's happened to all the men in our family. And I'm like, still not thinking anything about it. He says when he was in high school, so he was a little older than I was, he was sleeping in a room in their house. And there was not like tons of blinds on this was in Sanford, Florida. His father was also a pastor. And there was tons of blinds on this big sunroom type of room that he was sleeping in, but there was a street light, right, that would always kind of shine in to his room. And he said one night that he was asleep, but something kind of crossed over and just blocked out the light because he was used to having that light. And he woke up and he saw this dark, shadowy figure of a man standing over him with a sword sticking out from his back. And he said he reached back to grab it, and he started freaking out and just runs out of the room as fast as he can to get away from it. And he goes and tells his dad what had happened. Well, it was at that point that my grandfather, his father, tells him the story of how when he was, you know, in his early teens as well, that he was sleeping on the back porch, and this was in Mississippi. I believe it was in Hamilton, Mississippi, or somewhere like that. Not too far from the Tupelo area. It might have been Hattiesburg. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Anyway, a lot of times he would sleep on the back porch in the screened-in back porch because it would be nice and cool. And the family, they would keep the blankets on the back porch. And so in the middle of the night, if somebody got cold, they'd walk right to the back porch, open the screen door, get a blanket, and go back in. So my grandfather, he was sleeping on the back porch that night. And he said he heard the screen door open. And he was kind of rolled over on his side, and he figured it was his mother because his mom would come outside all the time and get a blanket whenever it got really cold. He said, Mom, he said, shut the door behind you, because he didn't hear the door slam shut. He just heard it open. And he said nobody answered him. And he turned, rolled over, and there was a dark, shadowy figure of a man standing over him with a sword sticking out from his back. And he said the guy reaches up, tries to grab it, and of course he freaks out, goes running just as hard as he can to his father, and he's freaked out. He's telling his dad. And that was when the next day, my great-grandfather, his name was Pete, told him the story of how that when he was a little boy, about the same age that I was, of course that was back in the early 1900s, that back then everybody was poor and everybody had a lot of kids. It was like farming type of family. And there were so many kids and they were so poor, they had one big bed for all the kids. And instead of sleeping, normal way, they turned like width way, and they could sleep more children in the bed. So they all slept in the same position every single night, in the same spot. Well, when my great-grandfather, one night, he said that he was laying there asleep, and he heard something, and he opened his eyes, and there was a dark, shadowy figure standing over him with a sword sticking out of his back. And he reached back and he went to grab it. Same exact thing. And he jumps up screaming, running, wakes everybody up. And whenever any of us this happen to us, we'd freak out and scream and it would just disappear. Well, this is where this one gets a little bit scarier. So my great-grandpa, he was really freaked out for a long time. And his dad, it didn't happen to him when he was a kid, so he didn't understand what was going on, but he was scared to death, and he slept with his parents for a little while. Well, the next night, the first night after he had this happen to him, his little brother slept in his spot. And the next day, they woke up, and he was dead. They never found out why he died, how he died, but he was sleeping in his spot the night after he saw what I believe it was a demon with the sword is what I've always thought. You can call it a ghost, you can call it a demon, whatever you want. But going back generations, this has happened to men in our family. It's happened to me, my dad, and his dad. And it hasn't happened to any of the women in our family. And up until that night when my dad was telling us this ghost story, I never knew this was a thing. And he's immediately sitting there telling this story that spans generations. And I'm just sitting there like, and I start remembering like all the little details. It's like it just kind of pulled back the curtain and I could remember exactly what happened. And it was exactly the same thing that they had described.
Now the question is, would you have survived these hauntings? Because I don't know. Well, that is it for part 3 of Audacity's most haunting stitches. Let me know down in the comments, would you stick around to see what would have happened next, or would you pack your sage and run? And of course, I need to know, do y'all want more? If that is the case, let me see some for us down in the comments so I know that you guys are ready. And make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the creepy compilations that I'll be posting next. Because you and I still have ghostly things to conjure up in the future. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here so I can go ahead and edit this video for you guys and push out another one. So with that being said, make sure that you drink your water, mind your business, and stay prayed up and protected. And as always, Luna loves you. I'll be back with another video for you guys if the spirits allow it.
Take that from me when I give that back. Wait, give it right